My name is Alice Morgan. I'm 30 years old and I used to be a financial specialist at the company my own family founded. For years, I lived quietly in a household where love was measured by achievement, by appearances, while I was always seen as a shadow standing behind the spotlight. That night, I walked into the hotel ballroom holding onto a fragile hope that my 30th birthday might finally be the rare moment I was acknowledged. I had worked too hard, endured too long. But when my mother raised the microphone, in front of hundreds of guests, her voice rang out cold. Today is not Alice's birthday. This is a 5-year anniversary party for Rebecca, the company she built. Alice is just here as an extra. The room fell silent. I stood frozen in the very place where I should have felt most loved. And when my family burst out laughing, treating it like a joke, I set my glass of wine down, looked straight at them, and said, "Thank you for reminding me of something. From this moment on, I no longer belong to this family." Have you ever felt invisible in your own home? Have you ever poured your heart out for your family, only to be slapped down in front of a crowd? If you've ever felt that way, leave a comment below so I know I'm not alone. Hit like and subscribe to the channel to follow my journey, leaving everything behind and starting over in a place no one expected. Because right after that night, I disappeared. But I didn't run away. I was preparing for a reckoning they would never forget. I walked out of the ballroom with music echoing and laughter lingering behind me. The cold night wind swept through my hair, carrying with it a strange lightness. Not because I was at peace, but because I had just dropped something I should have left long ago. For 30 years, I lived as if trying hard enough, waiting long enough, would make them see me. But they weren't blind. They saw me, they just chose to ignore me. I am the second, daughter of the Morgan family. We ran Morgan & Co., a financial firm with a polished reputation. On the surface, it looked impeccable. Inside, it was just a mask, polished by Rebecca's shine and protected by my parents' blind pride. Rebecca was always the chosen one. While I was still fumbling with balance sheets, she was sent abroad to study business management. While I stayed up nights reading every clause of contracts to avoid legal risks, she was out entertaining clients, attending parties, signing her name to the work I had prepared. "Rebecca has vision," my father would say proudly in board meetings, and my mother would add, "Alice is diligent. She does the little things well." The little things. I managed more than $100 million in rotating investments every quarter. I cleaned up the losses from Rebecca's botched contracts last year. I worked weekends, holidays, even stayed in the office alone on New Year's Day to finish the internal audit. But none of that was ever mentioned. At shareholder meetings, my father only praised Rebecca. Thanks to her, our revenue spiked last quarter. No one asked why operating costs had dropped. No one noted the reinvestment strategies I had built. And Dylan, my younger brother, was spoiled as if the entire fortune was reserved for him, not because he was capable, but because he was the son. My mother always said, "Dylan will be the official heir. Rebecca is talented, but she's a woman. Alice, even less so." I remember once suggesting a restructuring plan to avoid the tech bubble risks. My father stayed silent, then turned to Rebecca. "What do you think?" Rebecca skimmed the 2-week presentation I had prepared, shrugged, and said, "She's probably right. Let's try it." And the credit went to her. That was my life for years. No demands. No complaints. I thought maybe that was enough. Until my mother hijacked the microphone that night and turned my birthday into a celebration for someone else. I didn't go home afterward. I didn't return to the hotel where I'd booked a room for her. I wandered downtown until my legs gave out, then stopped at a 24-hour cafe. Alone, with a cold latte and a dim lamp, I looked back on my life through the screen of my phone. Photo after photo of Rebecca with big clients, smiling brightly, holding contracts I had drafted. A picture of Dylan flaunting the Rolex I gave him for his birthday, though he had been the one to borrow my car for a Vegas trip and scratch its side. And me? In the family albums, I was a blur. Or worse, missing altogether. I opened my laptop. A familiar motion, but this time not for reports. I logged into my private bank account, the one my family didn't know about, the one I had quietly built for 6 years. Every extra hour, every split bonus, I saved a piece away. Not because I distrusted them, but because somewhere deep down I knew I would need it the day I decided to walk away. The balance made me sit upright. More than $350,000. Untouched. I called Olivia, the only college friend I still kept close. "Are you free?" I asked. "I just got off work." "Why? Aren't you at your birthday party?" Her voice was full of surprise. I left. "Olivia, I need your honest advice. If I disappear for a few weeks, would you think I've lost my mind?" "I think if you still haven't done that by now, that would be crazy." I laughed softly, the sound breaking open in my chest. "I need a trip, Olivia. Somewhere no one can find me. And I want to start over." "What do you have in mind?" "I'm going to book a luxury getaway. Truly extravagant. Expensive, flashy, without asking anyone's permission. Do you know any resorts?" "I know one in Maui. Private villa, private jet, personal butler." "Book it for me. I'll send the details." And just like that, my 30th birthday ended not with cake or kind words, but with a wire transfer and a decision I had waited my whole life to make. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I didn't blame. I just felt empty and free all at once. Because finally, I had stepped out of the shadow they drew for me. No longer the middle daughter. No longer the reliable scapegoat. No longer the nameless worker behind the company reports. I am me. And I was about to walk away from the life they built for me. And I wouldn't go alone. Olivia sent me a message. "Private jet leaves tomorrow morning. Are you ready?" I looked at my phone again. My mother still hadn't sent a word after I walked out of that party. No one had. No one asked where I was. And maybe that was the truest birthday gift they had ever given me. I still remember the spotlight glaring in my face, reflecting the awkward stares around me. My mother holding the microphone, lips smiling but eyes cold, while Rebecca tilted her head, feigning surprise, as if she hadn't expected my birthday to become her celebration. Rebecca is truly the star of this company. No one deserves to be honored more than her today, my mother continued, scattered claps echoing awkwardly. I stood there, heart sinking, weighed down by disappointment. My father raised his glass of wine, smiling mechanically. "And Alice, you should also be proud just to be included." Included? That word echoed in my mind like a steady hammer against a door I had kept shut for far too long. I don't remember how I stepped onto the stage. I only remember holding my glass of wine, my voice ringing out strangely calm. "Thank you all for being here today. Although I'm said to be just included, I think I should say a few words." The entire room froze. I looked at my mother, my father, then turned to Rebecca. "Thank you for taking my birthday and making it your own celebration. And thank you, Mom and Dad, for teaching me the final lesson that my existence was never something you truly wanted to acknowledge." "What are you saying, Alice?" My mother frowned, stepping forward, but I raised my hand to silence her. "I understand now. I'm the shadow, the backup plan. But from this moment on, I will no longer stand in the dark." I placed the wine glass down on the decorated table. "I am officially leaving the company. And this family." A stunned murmur rippled through the room. Someone dropped a silver spoon. I heard whispers, caught the wide-eyed shock mixed with the subtle thrill of a few guests. Rebecca sneered. "Alice, don't exaggerate. We're family. This is just a misunderstanding." I looked straight at her, my voice low but every word sharp. "Family? Did you ever once ask what I needed? Or did you only care that there were enough lights for you to stand in the center?" "You're insulting your parents," my father snapped. "No, Dad. I'm simply stepping out of the role you forced on me for 10 years. The one who stayed silent, the one who cleaned up the mess, the one who was never remembered." I turned my back and walked out of the ballroom. No one stopped me. They thought I was too angry to think straight. I knew they would gossip, call, reach out. But that night, no message came. No phone call. Only Olivia texted to ask if I was all right. I replied, "I just left my own birthday party." They turned it into a tribute to Rebecca. And I walked away as if it were the funeral of my endurance. Olivia sent back a heart emoji, then called immediately. Tell me where you are. I already booked you a room. We need a plan. The next morning, I woke up in my apartment. The apartment I had bought under another name to hide from my family. They thought I was still living in the penthouse under my father's name, but I had moved out 3 months earlier. Everything I did quietly, as if my life had always been treated as something not worth showing. I opened my email, checking the final files I had backed up. Investment contracts, internal expense allocations, payroll records. The things my father and Rebecca always dismissed as Alice's work, but never cared about. I uploaded everything into an encrypted drive. Then, I reopened my private bank account and wired a deposit to the resort Olivia had recommended. In the new message she sent, Olivia attached photos of a beachfront villa. Wooden floors, private pool, endless white sand. I zoomed in on the picture. No one there. No judgmental looks, no sighs of disappointment. I texted back, confirm 2 weeks for me, private jet. I'll disappear as if I never existed in their eyes. That afternoon, I went to the office as usual. I walked straight to my desk, printed my resignation letter, sealed it in an envelope marked, "To the CEO." I wiped the computer clean, changed every password connected to the client accounts I managed. Finally, I sent an email to Rebecca's assistant team with the subject, "Please transfer all contracts," to someone officially authorized. In the signature line, I added one more sentence. All related documents are encrypted. Password: my birthday. If you still remember. I shut down the computer, slipped the USB into my bag, locked my office, and walked out of the building. By the time I stepped outside, the sky had turned pale gray. It felt as though the world itself was bracing for something about to break, and I knew they wouldn't realize it until everything began to collapse. I arrived at the airport at 7 a.m., carrying only a silver-gray suitcase and a burgundy handbag. On paper, I was a woman named Claire D. Halden, founder of an independent investment advisory firm based in Boston. That name, that company, were creations of my own from 4 years ago, not to deceive anyone, but to protect myself. From the moment I realized all my work would forever be credited to Rebecca, I began to build an escape route. A way out no one in my family or the boardroom could anticipate. I hired a private lawyer, established Halden Capital under a proxy, funneled small portions of revenue into hidden wallets. To anyone looking in, it appeared as an outside entity, unconnected to Morgan & Co. In reality, nearly 20% of Morgan & Co.'s shadow portfolio had already been quietly restructured and absorbed into Halden Capital under my watch. Part of me did it to prove I didn't need the family's shadow to accomplish something meaningful. The rest was because I had been pushed too close to the edge. 3 years ago, Rebecca signed a series of contracts with a chain of commercial properties in New Mexico. The deal was worth $14 million. On the surface, it looked safe. But within 2 weeks of signing, the assets were transferred to a third party with no transparency. When I asked, she shrugged it off. "That was a side clause," Nick added. "I forgot to tell you. You used my legal account to sign," I said, almost unable to believe. My eyes. Rebecca laughed. "Because you were out on business. Dad needed it signed fast. You've signed hundreds of these anyway. What's the big deal?" I stood frozen in that boardroom. When the internal audit report surfaced, every finger of blame would point to me. At that time, I had no voice. I was just the technical handler, not on the board, not with official authority. If Rebecca pulled away, I would be the one left carrying it all. And that was how Halden Capital was born. I told no one but Olivia. She was the only one from college who stayed. When I laid out the plan, Olivia didn't ask why. She only asked, "What do you need me to handle?" I had her register the corporate name, lease a virtual office in Manhattan, coordinate with a shadow team of accountants, and build a full management network. Olivia always had a way of making things look clean. She once worked at a trust fund in Miami, so she understood how the gray markets functioned, yet she was meticulous about staying on the right side of the law. Thanks to her, Every account I owned was shielded by legitimate layers of intermediaries complex enough that no one could trace them back. On the plane, I opened my laptop and logged into Halden Capital's internal portal. The interface appeared, neat and transparent, a world no one in my family had access to. A separate investment ecosystem, where I could control every move without fear of having my credit stolen. I scrolled down to the folder named Internal Liability, Morgan. Inside, I had saved every copy of contracts, every questionable email exchange, even the draft documents Rebecca once asked me to edit. I also kept the recording of a call between her and a partner, where she admitted signing my name on an asset transfer addendum without telling me. I listened to the recording again. Rebecca's voice drifted like a breeze. Alice won't object. She's used to it. She lives for the company, never thinks about her own rights. I didn't feel anger, only regret. I once believed Rebecca was my sister, the one who would protect me against the power games in the boardroom. But I realized, to her, I was just a nameless employee. After the plane landed in Maui, I stepped outside and saw Olivia waiting. "You brought the hard drive?" she asked softly, reaching for my suitcase. "Yes, including the copies of contracts Rebecca signed under my name. Are you sure you want to open all of this? Once you do, there's no going back." "There's nothing left to go back to," I said, eyes on the stretch of white sand. They forgot they raised a daughter with a sharp memory. Olivia nodded, then pulled out a list. "I've prepared files for 2 options. 1. Sell all the evidence to Seabright, the biggest rival of Morgan & Co. 2. Use it as leverage to renegotiate all the benefits they never gave you. Which way do you want to go?" "I'll take option 3, I replied with a smile. "Let them collapse. Step by step. I only need to push a little at their weakest point." Olivia understood immediately. "Let them stumble over their own blind spots." I handed her the hard drive, then got into the golf cart headed to the villa. When the glass doors slid open, the ivory room glowed under the sun, the scent of jasmine floating in the air, and I felt something unfamiliar. Not revenge, but clarity. Here, I didn't have to pretend to be fine. I didn't have to hide my ability. I didn't have to dim myself so others could shine. On the wooden table by the bed, I opened my laptop and drafted an invitation to old Morgan & Co. clients, the ones I had served in silence for 6 years but never once been named. Subject line: "I am Alice Morgan, and this is where your assets truly belong." Sent. No trace. No turning back. No permission asked. Only a plan I had been building for years. And from this moment, the world would have to learn to pronounce my name correctly. I woke on the 3rd morning in Maui, golden sunlight streaming through thin curtains, spilling across the soft folds of crisp white sheets. Waves lapped quietly beyond the balcony, the faint smell of roasted coffee drifting from the machine Olivia had set up. I didn't turn on music, nor did I rush to open my laptop. I simply sat still, letting my mind float in a space free from calls of duty or the familiar commands of the office. From the left drawer, I pulled out my work phone, the separate device for Halden Capital. Messages from 3 clients had arrived early that morning. 2 asked about the green investment package I had proposed last year, an idea Rebecca dismissed because it didn't look powerful enough. The 3rd was a businessman. I had once helped untangle a tax issue no one else at the company would touch. I replied to each calmly, precisely, attaching the Halden Capital website link. The site had just gone live a week ago, designed by Olivia, minimalist but elegant. Every piece of information was clear, open, free of the clutter and secrecy that had defined Morgan & Co. I pressed send, then opened Instagram. My personal account once had only a few hundred followers, mostly old colleagues and acquaintances in finance. But after last night's post, a photo of me perched at the edge of an infinity pool, legs dipping into crystal water, the horizon shimmering gold in the distance, everything changed. Over 4,000 new followers in just 12 hours. The comments were mixed, but mostly congratulations, curiosity, and a few private messages from faces I remembered from spring finance conferences. One comment stood out from Paul Lin, CFO of a major tech corporation in California. He had once shaken my hand through Rebecca's introduction and never remembered my name that day. Still remember when you presented on emerging bond markets in Cape Town. Very impressive. Can we reconnect? I smiled and wrote back simply, gladly. You're making waves, Olivia said, stepping in with an espresso in hand. Last night, Seabright's marketing director texted me. They're asking if you're Alice from Morgan & Co. I'm not answering. They should figure it out themselves. Fair enough. She set the cup down, leaning against the table. You're doing exactly what Rebecca fears most. Showing up. I didn't reply. I just pulled up a new photo on the screen. In it, I wore a soft white dress, standing on the wooden pier stretching into the sea, my hair pinned high, eyes fixed on the sunset. I adjusted the tone slightly, then typed a caption. When you stop bowing your head, the world lifts its eyes to see you. Within 3 minutes, the post had over 100 likes. A message popped up from Dylan. Dylan, where are you? Great photo. I didn't answer. An hour later, another message. Dylan, are you okay? Mom and Dad are worried. Dylan, are you really quitting? Everyone's talking about it. I set the phone on the wooden table, poured myself water, took a long sip, then switched to speaker. Dylan's call came in at 8:30 a.m. I let it ring 10 times before picking up. Sis? His voice was soft as air. Are you really leaving? Why do you think this is leaving? I said, still gazing at the sea. Didn't I tell the whole family I was walking away that night? I thought you were just upset. Who knew? You'd actually go through with it. Go through with it? I gave a short laugh. You think life is a game, Dylan? Silence stretched. I didn't mean it that way. It's strange. Everyone's shocked. Dad keeps asking about the client files you managed. Mom hasn't said anything, but you know how she is. I do. And that's exactly why I don't want to explain anymore. So you're not coming back? For what? To help them. You're the only one who can handle the strategic investments. If you let it go, Rebecca, she has no idea how to manage it. I've seen it. Clients are already complaining. I'm not surprised. Where are you? Do you really care, Dylan? Or do you just want to report back to them? Dylan went quiet. I let the silence stretch a few more beats. I don't need anyone calling me back. I don't need their concern. All I want is the right to decide my own life. And Dylan, I've never felt this light before. What are you planning to do next? Enjoy this vacation and rebuild everything from scratch. With a system I fully control, no one signing my name without permission, no one stealing credit, no one dismissing me. I heard him sigh. I couldn't tell if it was helplessness or envy. Well, if you need anything, just call me, Dylan said quietly. After all, I'm not entirely like them. I didn't answer right away. Maybe, in some part of me, I still believed Dylan had once been the only one who didn't completely forget me. But trusting again was a long road. Thank you, I said shortly, then ended the call. Olivia sat down across from me, her eyes half serious, half teasing. You think Dylan's being honest? I don't know, but at least you heard him. He didn't call me Alice from Morgan & Co. anymore. She laughed. Exactly. Now it's just Alice that the whole internet is talking about. I lifted my phone camera and handed it to Olivia. Take a few shots for me. My social wall still has empty space. Still, your self-affirmation campaign? No, I smiled. It's the campaign to teach them not to forget the one who once lived in silence. Olivia raised the phone, counted down. I turned my face toward the sea, letting the wind lift my hair, letting the sunlight brush my thin sleeves, my shadow stretching across the clear water below. Behind me was the past. Ahead of me was a radiant silence, waiting to be rewritten with my own name. I was lying under the palm trees, eyes half closed, a book open across my stomach when the ringtone cut through the still air. Olivia was calling on video, without warning as always, meaning it was something important. The screen showed her face, suppressing a laugh while shaking her head. You should see this. Then Olivia turned the camera. The frame revealed a clip from the 12th floor surveillance camera at Morgan & Co., the executive offices. In the video, Rebecca was standing at my desk, or rather, at the empty desk with no papers, no hard drive, no green ceramic mug I always kept by my side each morning. My mother, Margaret, in a pale gray suit, stood next to her, holding a phone, her face pale with rage. Rebecca snapped. She locked everything. All the documents on this quarter's portfolio are encrypted, even the Henderson transfer data. My mother barked into the phone, surely at my father. Don't ask me, I told you. She's playing childish games. Olivia turned the camera back to herself. I had to cut the video short because the legal team started realizing someone inside was saving footage. But trust me, chaos is breaking loose. I propped myself up on my elbow, smirking. How far did they get? Nowhere. The encryption you said is solid. I checked again. They'd need an 8-digit string plus 2 special characters, unrelated to any internal file. No one can guess that. I reached for my phone, opened messages, and typed a line straight to my father. Alice, if you need to open the files, the password is my birthday. If you still remember. Not even a minute later, his call came through. I let it ring long before answering. You think this is a joke? His voice was hoarse, tight with strain. The whole company is spinning because of your childish antics. Why call it childish? I leaned back in the rattan chair, eyes on the far horizon. I'm only doing what you always did to me, ignoring. Stop circling around, Alice. What's the password? I already told you. My birthday. He went silent. I didn't rush him. I heard Rebecca in the background. Try July. Is it July or November? Then my mother's voice. No, winter. I remember it was winter. I chuckled softly. All right. My father ground out. Alice, stop playing games. We have a meeting with major investors in 2 hours. They're demanding the risk analysis report. If you don't, why don't you stop for a moment and think what day your daughter was born? You're putting your own career at risk. I don't see it that way. You're sabotaging the family's work. No. I'm claiming the right to exist. His breath hissed through the line. We'll talk later, he said, then hung up. I set the phone on the wooden table, not bitter, only confirmed. All 3 of them, my parents and Rebecca, none of them. I remembered my birthday. When Olivia returned to the porch with 2 glasses of juice, I told her everything. Honestly, I said, I once thought if I died, no one in my family would even carve the right date on my headstone. Olivia didn't laugh. She set the glass down, sat beside me, silent for a moment before saying quietly, they might put a date. But not because they remember, because they need it to look proper. I nodded. How long do you plan to let them stumble? She asked. As long as they still think the important thing is opening a file instead of looking at how they treated the one holding it. I stood, picked up my phone, and opened Instagram. The photo I had posted that morning had already been shared by a page dedicated to women in finance. In the comments, someone named Rachel Simmons, CEO of Horizon Group, had written, "A beautiful move. When you step back the right way, the world has no choice but to turn its head." I clicked into her profile. Verified, all in green. I sent a private message. Thank you for noticing. I'm starting my own journey. She replied almost instantly. Does that journey need another companion? I turned to Olivia. Horizon just hinted at a partnership. Olivia raised her brows. I'm not surprised. You're doing exactly what people long for, walking away from an old empire to build a fairer world. Exactly. No one is born with power. But anyone can learn how to use their voice. That afternoon, I received a message from one of Morgan & Co.'s longtime clients, Mr. Francis, who had held major contracts with the firm for years. Francis, I heard you resigned. They sent someone else to the meeting, but he couldn't answer my questions. If you're working independently, I'd like to move my entire portfolio to you. I replied. It would be my honor. At the same moment, An email from Rebecca's office popped up. The subject line in bold, urgent, need, support decoding Henderson contract files. I forwarded it to Olivia, adding no message. "You're not going to reply?" Olivia asked. "I already did," I said. "The problem is they haven't learned how to read." I leaned back in the chair, lifted my glass of juice, sipped slowly, eyes fixed on the sunset spreading over the water. The sky doesn't ask where you come from. It only reflects your true color when you dare to lift your head. That evening, just as I finished a call with a new client, my personal phone buzzed. The number on the screen made me pause. Dylan. In my memory, Dylan had always been the spoiled youngest son, lazy, living off our parents' money, and the enormous allowances no one at the firm dared question. He had never cared about work or about me. I thought of letting it ring out, but my hand pressed accept. "Sis?" Dylan's voice was hoarse, strange, as if he had wrestled with himself before calling. "Can you listen to me for 2 minutes?" "Depends on what it is," I answered evenly. "I want to see you. Alone. No one else will know. I have something to give you." I frowned. "What game are you playing? Or did Mom and Dad send you as their messenger?" "No. I really don't want to stand with them anymore." Dylan exhaled sharply. "Do you remember when Mom scolded you? And I was the one who sneaked cookies into your room? You were the only one who played with me in the backyard. I never forgot that." I stayed quiet. For a moment, the image of a messy-haired boy with dirt-stained hands, calling me excitedly to dig worms in the garden, flickered back. But I pushed the feeling aside. "What do you want?" "To meet. Tomorrow. At the small dock on the south side of the island. Bring Olivia if you don't trust me. I'll come alone. If you think it's worthless, I'll walk away right there." The call ended, leaving a hesitation in my chest. Olivia looked at me from the other chair, questioning eyes. "Dylan?" I nodded. "He says he wants to give me something." Olivia tilted her head, thinking, "You think it's a trap?" "Maybe. But maybe it's Dylan's real way out." The next morning, the sky was a soft blue. Olivia and I drove to the dock as arranged. The waves tapped gently, a few small boats loosely tied to the wooden pier. Dylan was already there, hands shoved into his pockets, his face noticeably thinner. When he saw me, he raised his hand, as if afraid I might turn back at any moment. "Sis, thank you for coming. You have 10 minutes. I folded my arms, my eyes never leaving his face. Dylan pulled a small black USB drive from his jacket pocket and placed it in my hand. "It's all here. Copies of the internal accounting system, detailed fund transactions, and the hidden expense sheets. I got it through a friend in finance. He owed me a favor." I narrowed my eyes. "And why bring it to me? Because I can't take it. Anymore." Dylan swallowed, his eyes reddening. "I lived too long believing Mom and Dad would always take care of me, that being the sweet son was enough. But sis, they're sinking. Rebecca's panicking, Mom cries every day, Dad's out of control. They're planning to dump it all on you. They're saying you abandoned the company in its darkest hour. They want to make you the shield. I can't let that happen." Olivia stood beside me, her grip tight on her bag, eyes locked on Dylan. "Are you sure this data is reliable?" I asked. "Open it yourself and see." I skimmed through. The so-called charity funds actually went into Mom's private accounts. The consultant fees were funneled into Rebecca's shell company. Even luxury travel expenses were filed as market research. I'm no accountant, but even I can see the holes. I held the USB, its weight heavier than anything I had ever carried. "What do you want in return?" Dylan shook his head. "Nothing. I just want out. If you need, I'll testify. I'm tired of playing the useless youngest son they wrote me to be. I want a real life." The sea breeze swept Dylan's hair back, revealing sunken eyes. I saw sincerity. I sighed, turned to Olivia. "What do you think?" Olivia met Dylan's gaze. "If you're handing this to Alice, it means you've chosen to turn your back on your parents. There's no way back." "I know," Dylan nodded. But it's my choice. I gripped the USB tightly, then slipped it into my pocket. Fine, I'll verify it. But Dylan, don't expect me to protect you. This path, you walk it on your own. That's all I want. That night, I plugged the USB into my villa's laptop. Olivia sat beside me, watching closely. The screen lit up, dozens of files appearing. I opened one spreadsheet, instantly spotting discrepancies. Reported revenue on one line, actual costs on another. Millions of dollars hidden through circular tricks. There were even copies of internal emails no one would have believed Dylan could obtain. I opened a note file, words standing out in black. Sign Alice's name to cover Rebecca. If audits ask, Alice takes the fall. Olivia let out a sharp breath. My God, it couldn't be clearer. I froze, reading each word. No surprise, no anger, just confirmation. What are you going to do with it? Olivia asked. I looked outside, where waves rolled under the silver moonlight. You know, Olivia, all my life, they've seen me as a shadow. Now I'm holding a torch that could burn everything down. But I don't want to use it for revenge. I want to use it so they'll finally see their own shadow. Olivia nodded slightly. So, Dylan, is he part of the plan? Maybe. If he truly changes, he'll be a valuable witness. If not, he'll be swept away in the ashes. I shut off the screen, pulled the USB out, and placed it into a locked metal box. My fingers brushed its cold surface. This was no longer a secret. This was the ace, and I, the forgotten one, now held the fate of the entire Morgan family. That morning, I sat in a glass-walled room facing the sea, the breeze carrying salt into every corner. Olivia set a laptop in front of me, already prepared, the screen waiting to connect to Morgan & Co.'s emergency board meeting. On the other side, they were gathered in the top floor of the New York headquarters. You're sure you want to appear live? Olivia asked. Just sending the files would be enough to choke them. I glanced toward the beach, where a few children played under the sun. No, I want them to see the face they used to treat as invisible. Olivia didn't argue, just nodded and pressed connect. The screen lit up, revealing a long boardroom, polished walnut table, black leather chairs encircling it. Every executive was present, their faces tight. Rebecca sat between my parents, looking worn, mascara streaked under her eyes. My father, Edward, slammed his hand against the table when my image appeared. What is this nonsense, Alice? His voice was low and sharp. It's the part you all left out of your perfect picture. I smiled calmly. Good morning, board members. I'm no longer there as an employee, but today I'm here as an independent shareholder, and more importantly, as the keeper of all the data you tried so hard to bury. Whispers rippled through the room. One member, Mr. Harris, frowned. You are obligated to hand over that data to the company. It's internal property. Internal property? I pulled up a file and shared it on the screen. Then explain why this $10 million expense labeled Global Charity Fund was transferred into a subsidiary under Margaret Morgan's name. My mother flinched, her face flushing red. You're making this up. Making it up? I zoomed in on the bank statement. Here's the original, with certified signatures from the partner bank. I took it directly from the internal server Dylan provided. If needed, I can forward it to the SEC. The boardroom fell silent. Rebecca tried to steady herself, cutting in. Even if mistakes were made, Alice has no authority, I interrupted. Authority? You used my name to sign risky addendums, remember? Let me play it for everyone. I opened the audio file. Rebecca's voice came through, clear. Alice won't object. She's used to it. She lives for the company, never thinks about personal rights. Rebecca's face drained of color, her hands clenching. Mr. Harris cleared his throat. Rebecca, is that your voice? She stammered, eyes darting. It must be edited. I said nothing, just opened another video extracted from internal emails, where Alice Morgan appeared on a New Mexico land transfer addendum. This signature, I said slowly, was scanned from my personal records. Rebecca used my legal account to insert it. If that deal collapsed, I'd take the fall. But now, I paused, scanning the room. The board can see who really stood behind it. Rebecca covered her face, saying nothing more. My father snapped. You're destroying yourself, Alice. If you release those files, the company will collapse. No, Dad. The company collapses only if the trash stays hidden under the rug. I have no intention of destroying Morgan and Co. I'm here to offer a choice. I clicked, shifting the slide. The logo of Seabright Capital filled the screen, Morgan and Co.'s fiercest competitor. Seabright has contacted me. They're interested in the client portfolios I personally managed. If Morgan and Co. wants to keep them, transparency must be proven. If not, those clients leave with me. A wave of unrest spread across the room. Mr. Harris leaned back, his eyes calculating. Alice, you clearly have evidence strong enough to go public. What do you want? I want the truth acknowledged. I want no more employees, underpaid just because they don't carry the Morgan name. I want those sham charity funds erased from the books. And I want everything that belongs to me returned, including the shares my family erased. My father slammed the table, voice boiling with rage. Don't you dare dream of it. I looked straight into the camera, my tone steady. Then wait for the subpoena. I've already filed for investigation. This game is no longer in your hands. A heavy silence pressed over the boardroom. Members glanced at one another, many visibly shaken. Rebecca's breath quickened, her voice trembling. No, you can't. You're my sister, Alice. You can't do this to me. You did it to me. Why can't I? My gaze locked on her stunned face. You used my name to escape accountability. Now your name will appear exactly where it belongs on the indictment. The screen went still. In the eyes of some board members, shock gave way to recognition. They saw the truth, and they couldn't look away. Olivia, seated beside me, whispered, You just pulled that entire room out of your family's orbit. I took a sip of water, exhaling. No, I just showed them who's really been steering it. And in the pale glow of the screen, I saw Rebecca breaking, while I stood upright in the storm they created. After the call ended, my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. It lit up nonstop with calls from my parents, a few from Rebecca, and urgent texts from company assistants. Olivia glanced at it and sighed. Going to answer? I will, but not to compromise. I picked up. My mother's voice came through, trembling, barely recognizable. Alice, listen to me. We can solve this within the family. You don't have to take it outside. Why? I sat straighter, eyes fixed on the sunlit glass. Afraid the world will see the truth? Or afraid this is the first time you've realized I can bring it all down? You're our blood, she choked. I admit, maybe we've neglected you for too long, but that doesn't matter as much as protecting the company. It's our family's future. I let out a quiet laugh. The family's future, but it was never mine. I was only remembered when you needed a name to cover mistakes. My father grabbed the phone. Alice, listen to me. If you come back, I'll restore your position, increase your shares, even let you sit directly on the board. Don't destroy the legacy I spent my life building. Does that legacy have a place for me? Or only a place for me to take the blame for others? There was silence on the other end for a few seconds. Then Rebecca cut in, her voice trembling. Alice, I'm sorry. I did use your name. I know it was wrong. But I panicked. I couldn't let Mom and Dad down. You understand? Since we were little, I've always been the pride. If the truth comes out, we'll lose everything. I closed my eyes, drew in a long breath. You just confessed. Thank you. I'll keep that. You're not going to submit it to investigators, are you? Rebecca's voice cracked. Why wouldn't I? My whole life, the family only remembered me when they needed a scapegoat. But I'm no longer the sacrificial pawn. I hung up. Olivia watched me closely, understanding my resolve without a word. Not even 10 minutes later, Dylan called. I answered this time. His voice was hurried. Sis, I just left the house. They're going crazy. Mom hasn't stopped crying. Dad smashed a glass in anger. Rebecca locked herself in her room, screaming that I betrayed her. I can't stay there anymore. Which side have you chosen, Dylan? I asked slowly. Yours. I don't trust them anymore. I saw everything with my own eyes, how they planned to pin all the blame on you. I won't let that happen. I'll testify if needed. I glanced at Olivia. She nodded lightly, affirming Dylan's words. Fine, I said. But remember, choosing my side means cutting ties with them. Are you ready for that? Yes. Dylan's voice was firmer than I had ever heard. You're not the only one they abandoned. I was just another piece to protect their image. I'm done with being the useless youngest son. I want a different life. A strange feeling rose in my chest, both sorrow and relief. I had never expected Dylan to wake up, but maybe even shadows couldn't last forever. Good, I whispered. Hold on to that choice. There's more coming, Olivia added. If Dylan truly stands with us, we can use him to strengthen testimony. An internal witness with the Morgan name can't be denied, Dylan overheard and added. I'm ready. Just tell me where to go. When the call ended, I set the phone down, my heart still pounding. My whole life, I thought I was alone in the dark. But now, at least, I wasn't completely alone. A few minutes later, the screen lit again. This time it was a text from my father, Edward Morgan. Daughter, I beg you, don't do this. Let the family have a chance to fix things. Whatever you want, we'll discuss. I stared at the words, tasting the bitter irony. For years, I craved recognition. Now, they promised everything, but not from love, only because they needed me to save the rotting shell of Morgan & Co. I typed a few words back. Too late. The screen went dark, leaving only my reflection in the glass. I turned to Olivia, my voice steady. They've lost their last support, Dylan has chosen, and I was never coming back. The ocean wind rustled, carrying the feeling of a curtain falling on an old play. And I was no longer a side character. The day of the trial, I sat in the prep room, navy blazer sharp at the shoulders, crisp white collar pressed flat. Olivia beside me, flipping through the files to ensure nothing was missing. Outside, the courthouse hallway buzzed with reporters, camera shutters clicking endlessly. The name Morgan & Co., once tied to power and prestige, now splashed across headlines with the word fraud investigation. You all right? Olivia asked softly. I'm fine. I nodded. Everything's in the open now. There's nothing left to hide. We entered the courtroom. The chamber was wide, lit by cold fluorescent light. The press benches on both sides were full, eyes locked on every move. At the defense table sat my parents and Rebecca beside their attorney. My father, Edward, face ashen, eyes hollow, still tried to sit tall as if in the boardroom. My mother, Margaret, avoided my gaze, clutching a silk scarf tight. Rebecca kept her head down, lips trembling, heavy makeup unable to hide her ruin. When the judge's gavel struck, the room stilled. The prosecutor read the charges. Systemic financial fraud, misappropriation of charity funds, internal discrimination, coercing employees into signing falsified records. Each count read, each figure cited, was met with frantic typing from reporters. When my turn came to take the stand, the light of the whole room seemed to fall on me. I drew in a breath and began. I am Alice Morgan. For over 6 years, I directly managed key investment portfolios at Morgan & Co., but was never acknowledged. My sister used my name to sign risky contracts. And I hold the evidence that this company has concealed, defrauded, and discriminated against its own employees. I opened my briefcase, taking out the USB and thick file. On the courtroom screen, spreadsheets, emails, and internal memos appeared. My forged signature, Rebecca's recorded confession, the transfers into my mother's subsidiaries all laid bare. No one at the defense table dared lift their eyes. My attorney asked, "Were you coerced in this process?" I wasn't directly forced, but I was put in a position where silence was the only option. If I objected, I would have been cast out. They knew I was the forgotten daughter no one would defend me. A stir swept the room. One reporter muttered into his recorder, "The forgotten daughter becomes the key to toppling the empire." Then Olivia took the stand. Her voice was sharp and clear. I supported Alice in managing records. I witnessed her paid less than male colleagues for equal work. I hold the emails where Rebecca asked Alice to sign contracts on her behalf. This was not personal error, it was a system maintained for too long. The defense tried to object, claiming the files were taken unlawfully, but the prosecution already had bank confirmations and audit verification. There was no escape. When given the chance to speak, my father rose, voice rasping. We only wanted to protect the company. Maybe we were harsh, but it was all for the family legacy. I stared straight at him. What legacy is built on exploitation and lies? What are you protecting, the company or your pride? Rebecca broke into sobs, mascara streaming. You may hate me, but don't push it this far. I was wrong, I admit it. But it's because you were always there to take the weight, stronger than I thought. Without you, I'd have fallen long ago. I shook my head. No, Rebecca. I wasn't stronger. I was just silenced too long. And you chose the pedestal while putting me beneath it. The gavel struck, ending questioning. The next morning, front pages across major papers carried the photo of me leaving court, Olivia at my side, Dylan behind me, the headline, Forgotten Daughter Becomes Key to Dismantling Morgan & Co. Television replayed the footage of my father mute, my mother's bowed head, Rebecca in tears. Decades of reputation crumbled in one morning. The court ruled. Edward and Margaret Morgan were stripped of all executive positions, left with only symbolic roles. Rebecca lost all management authority, forced to resign. Investigations would continue, but the company was placed under independent board supervision to protect client interests. That night, I sat in a New York hotel room, the TV screen showing reporters swarming outside Morgan & Co.'s headquarters. Olivia uncorked a bottle of red wine and poured 2 glasses. You did it. I held my glass, eyes still fixed on the news. No. I only said what should have been said long ago. Justice did the rest. Dylan leaned back in his chair, his face still stunned. You showed the whole world who they really are. I never thought I'd see this day. I turned to him, speaking slowly. Dylan, I didn't show them. They exposed themselves. I just stopped covering it up. The room fell into silence, broken only by the TV's murmur. Outside, the city blazed with lights, loud yet distant. I sat still, feeling as though a heavy chapter had closed, and an empty page stretched open ahead. After the trial, I returned to Hawaii. The waves lapped softly. The sky blue as though no storm had ever swept through my life. But inside, I knew everything had changed. Forever. One morning, Olivia walked into the villa with a thick folder in hand. Seabright has made it official. They want you as global investment director. Salary, authority, and equity far beyond anything Morgan & Co. ever promised. I paused, my fingers brushing the page with its clear terms. It wasn't about the numbers. It was about acknowledgement. They saw me not as a shadow, but as someone capable of steering a new empire. How should I respond? I asked, half testing, half wanting to hear aloud what I already knew inside. Do you even have to ask? Olivia laughed, pouring coffee into 2 mugs. You stood alone in the storm. Now it's time to sail your own ship. I signed then and there. The pen stroke was firm, unwavering. Dylan arrived in Hawaii a week later. He stepped off the plane with a small suitcase, a far cry from the spoiled heir he used to be. His hair was cropped short, his expression serious. Welcome to real life, I said, half joking as he looked around, inhaling the sea breeze deeply. I left everything behind, Dylan replied, relief flickering in his eyes. I feel like I'm not living in a script someone else wrote. I took him back to the villa and showed him a small office beside the porch. If you truly want to start over, from now on you'll work under my guidance. No more allowances, no more of Dad's side accounts. Only real work and real responsibility. I'm ready. Dylan nodded. I don't want to go back to who I was. In the days that followed, I put Dylan on small projects, drafting reports, analyzing markets, noting every detail. At first, he fumbled, but then he learned to listen, to rise after mistakes. Each time I saw him scribbling careful notes, I realized my brother had finally stepped out of the gilded cage our family built. My 31st birthday drew near. Unlike last year, I wasn't waiting for anyone to celebrate. Olivia and I planned a small gathering on the private beach in Maui. True friends, those who had stood by me, along with a few clients turned allies, all received invitations. Dylan helped set up white tents, stringing golden lights along the palms. That evening, the sea shimmered under a sunset that gilded the waves. I walked barefoot on the sand, my white dress flowing in the wind. Olivia brought out a small cake, not extravagant, but glowing with candles. "Happy birthday, Alice!" Voices rang in unison, echoing under the vast sky. I closed my eyes, wishing not for my old family to change, but simply for my own chosen life to continue, and for Dylan to have the strength to stand tall in his new self. When I opened them, Dylan stepped forward with a small wooden box. "A birthday gift from me. It's not expensive. I made it myself." Inside was a pine frame, rough letters carved into it. "Family is those who stay, not those who leave." Tears welled in my eyes. "You've truly grown up." Olivia placed a hand on my shoulder. "Real family doesn't always start with blood. It's built from those who see your worth and never forget it." Music drifted, soft against the waves. Glasses were raised, the golden lights reflecting in bright, joyful eyes. I looked around and, for the first time, felt myself at the center of a warm circle not empty anymore. Late that night, I sat on the wooden steps, gazing out at the sea, a glass of wine in hand. Olivia and Dylan still laughed with friends under the glowing tent. I closed my eyes, letting the breeze run through my hair, as a thought finally echoed clear inside me. Sometimes, to find your true family, you must leave the place once called home. And sometimes, the sweetest revenge is living a life they never believed you deserved. Looking out at the night ocean, I realized each of us has moments when family or loved ones wound us deeply. Some choose silence, some surrender, and some, like me, decide to rise and walk a different path too, to discover their true worth. I want to hear your thoughts. If you were in my place, what would you choose? Stay silent to preserve the illusion of harmony or dare to leave? To live a life truly your own? Share your thoughts below, because I believe every story, every perspective can be the encouragement someone lost might need. And if you want to hear more stories of family, betrayal, resilience, and rebirth like mine, follow this channel so you won't miss the journeys ahead. Because perhaps, in my story, you'll see a piece of yourself.